been a week since my last update. And here's where we're at. Last Saturday, I went and my friend Andre, I was in his town, so I went and hung out with him. Great guy. We had a blast. And I stayed overnight last Saturday at his place. The truck was left at the Schneider OC, and he and I are both content creators and on different channel, do similar type stuff, and his is a different niche market than mine is, but we worked on a video together. We released that video, and then we ate a couple of times, hung out, edited, that kind of thing, and then it was Sunday night. I guess it's Sunday about dinner time. He dropped me back off at the truck. He had some things he had to do with his family. So I got back into my zone and started to get in the mindset of, here we go. Now, what was I getting in the mindset of? Well, at the time I had no jobs, and the Pods account doesn't give you work on the weekend. So I had to wait until Monday to see what was going on. I tried calling a bunch of times Monday, never got anybody. Finally, and I tell you, that's the biggest thing that frustrates me with Schneider is the lack of communication. I'm big time into communication. I've been a supervisor. I've been in management before. I'm big on communication with people, with my team. And you call Schneider and you get on the phone with, you get on their phone system and you listen to their hold music. I call it the Ballad of Schneider because all it is, it sounds like Minecraft. Like in the morning, it plays this music. And first time I heard it back at Schneider training, I thought that someone was playing a Minecraft theme. I really did. But it wasn't that way. It's this Schneider hold music. And then you listen to it for so long, it didn't seem like it was they were ever gonna pick up. And I don't know why, but they just don't. There's long holds the whole time. So anyway, I didn't log in on my phone, mainly because, I didn't log in on the tablet rather, because if I did that, then that would start to cut in on my 70 hours that I could drive. And I was really hoping to get a job where I could be driving, across, a few states again, or, cross country or whatever. I wanted to save my hours for that. And so I just did not log in. I just sat there at Schneider OC in Wilmer and just waited and waited. And finally, after calling a few times, I finally got someone on the phone around 11 something, I guess it was. And that ended up being the first time I'd spoken to my DTL, my official drive team leader. And I introduced myself to her, said hello, nice to meet you finally. And I said, I'm available, send me out there. And she said, well, we actually have a job in that's going to be sent to you momentarily. I'm like, great. Where is it? They said it's going to be picking up in Lancaster, Texas, which is right next to where I was. And they said coming back to Atlanta. I'm like, great. That sounds wonderful. So I said, let's do it. And I said, okay, well, it's sending to you right now. Okay, cool. When they send you something, it has to go through workflow on our tablets. They also, because it's a Pods account, they send you an email with something called a trip sheet in it. The trip sheet has different information about the pod you're getting, the order number, the container number, so that way you can look at the pod and see what the serial number is of it, the container number. And you know where it's going and the information about that location, the hours, which are almost always 6 to 3. Or at least so far. And it has general information about like where you need to park and how you need to do things, that kind of thing. Okay, so I said, all right, well, I can hook me up. Let's do this. I got off the phone with her and waited. And then I started calling and calling. And she gave me a different phone number also to call. I called that number, sat on hold for over an hour, hung up, turned around and called the other number, sat on hold for over an hour, hung up, started calling, started sending messages through the tablets. Finally, I'm called by the other guy that I was speaking to, my other leader. the guy that was the first contact I spoke to, and he says, "Hey, how's it going? You enjoying things so far?" I'm like, I mean, I would be if I was sent out on some jobs, but I said I'm spending so much time on hold. I've spent over, I spent like, I was told 3 hours ago I was going to be sent a job, but I'm just sitting here on hold, and I can't get a hold of anybody. I can't get a hold of anyone, and they were supposed to be sending me a job 3 hours ago. He says, "Really? That didn't arrive?" He looks in the system. And he says, "Let me send it through it again. Send it again." So he sends me the email, and that comes through, so I can see what the trip sheet is. And it wasn't just Lancaster, which is the next town over. No, they wanted me to go to Fort Worth, which is the opposite side of the city. If I knew that my first pickup was going to be in Fort Worth, I would have gone there before rush hour traffic. Here's another thing. Because they close at 3, I wasn't sent the information until 2:41, and it was supposed to be picked up that day. So I'm like, great. There's no way in the world in Fort Worth in the middle of rush hour, because the city starts to get busy. It's 45 miles away from where I was. So I was like, there's no way in the world I'm going to make it there before 3. So I said, all right, I'm at least going to go through rush hour, get on that side of town. And as soon as the job popped up in the trip sheet, I at least knew that the work should be coming at me through workflow shortly thereafter. I was holding my fingers, crossed, and said, I'm going to at least go ahead and drive on out. Well, I drove out to Fort Worth. Obviously, it took like an hour and 45 minutes to go that in traffic. And when I got there, I basically just found the nearest truck stop, which was supposed to be a Pilot, but it didn't seem to exist. I don't know why. I could not. It was not showing up. I didn't see any signs for it or anything, so I said I'm going to find the next one. Ended up being at this place called Taco 365. Stayed there for the night. Got up early the next morning, was there at 5:30 a.m., only to find out when they came out at just after 6, they said, "Oh, we always load up our own pods trucks before we load up any drivers." Great. So I had to wait for their trucks to get the pods they were going to go off and deliver, and then I had to wait. So that it was just after 7 a.m. when they ended up loading me up. Made a mistake, admittedly. There was a lady in a flatbed behind me, and as soon as they gave me the pods, I figured that they could easily drive out of their little fenced area and give her hers. But apparently not. Apparently they're not allowed to leave that little fenced-in area because there's only one. There's like, if you go all the way to the left-hand side, the trucks can pull in, and there's room on the other side, so another truck could go in if you wanted to. But I went ahead and started securing the one pod I was picking up, and I got it secured, and she honks at me once, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm leaving. Don't worry." And I get in the truck, and that's one thing about the internationals is that it takes forever for the air tanks to fill back up sometimes. It's really bad if you're backing up and you keep hitting the brakes over and over again. Freightliner Cascadias doesn't do that. It'll hold its air a lot better. But the International LT, that's one thing that I do not like about it, is that if you hit the brake a lot of times, when I do the pump down test first thing in the morning, it goes from the governor cutoff around 130 psi down to about 90 with 6 pumps. Pump, 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 pump. And then I sit there and wait, and the meter goes down, and once it kind of levels off around 90 psi, I know it's there. And then once it goes back up to governor cutoff again, I can pump it 10 times, and I hear the alarm go off, and I have to look, and the meter will slowly drop for tank 1 and tank 2, and eventually the light will come on, but the audible alarm goes off. So then all it takes is me pumping it about another 8 times until I got this down to a science now, and then both of the buttons will pop out. So, but yeah, 6 pumps will take it down to about the 90 psi to build back up, and then from there, yeah, I have it down to a science. At least it seems to be that way so far. So anyway, I was watching the tanks. I'm like, change. I gotta move. Finally, she comes around and says, when she said, in the future, once you get your boxes, she said, pull around here and secure it in this lot. Which means pull out on the road without it secured. I guess it's going to be okay as long as you go slow. But still, I don't. Maybe it's just me being a noob, but I don't like the idea of driving with anything on the back of the flatbed unless it's secured, even if it is to drive onto the make a circle, go back onto the road. I would at least like to put the one belly strap on it, put it one on there, say at least let me get it in place, and then I'll drive around. Maybe that's something I could do in the future. Anyway, though, she came around. She was nice. She was just like, in the future, pull around that way, and then secure your boxes there. That way, we can all get our boxes too. And I was like, I at this point, I said, you're right. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm polite. What can I say? And she was right. I mean, I'm new at this, so I figured they would actually go out there, but I guess they just can't leave the little fenced-in area for insurance reasons or something like that. Anyway, so at that point, it was rush hour, so I drove over to Lancaster, picked up the other 2 boxes, and then I started heading my way towards Atlanta. I expected to get caught in more rush hour traffic leaving Lancaster. Got down the road. I stopped overnight at Jackson, Mississippi. Ran out of hours. Well, I should say I didn't run all the way out. I was about at my last hour. But what I've been doing is looking ahead at the stops, and I knew I wanted to stop for a shower. So I knew that if I stopped too late, I wouldn't be able to maybe get one of the truck stops that I have, the Flying J or the Pilots, which I have the points accrued up for. Still waiting to get that shower power. Still waiting for that. And unfortunately, at the time I'm recording this, it is what is the date? I mean, these are 98 days delayed by the time you see them. It's August 26th. So I won't hit the road again until the 28th. I only have like 500 gallons, and it resets on the 31st, or on the 1st rather. So anyway, let me not get ahead of myself here. All right, so I got to Jackson, Mississippi, stayed overnight, drove back, made my 2 deliveries, and on the way to the first one, it's my town. Atlanta's my city. So on my way to the first one, I started running into traffic. So I was like, you know what? I can cut this down to the right and I can bypass this. As soon as I turned right on a road to try to cut around, my mind started telling me, wait a minute, don't get off the regular path. You're used to it in a car, but don't do it in a truck just because. What if you end up turning onto a road that trucks aren't allowed on? And I was like, every time I went to the GPS and said, take me to that location, hoping it would reroute me, it wasn't. It was saying, go back, get on the interstate. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I went, made a left-hand turn down a road, and I was like, and it was industrial, but there was no turnaround. And then I got down to the stop sign. I saw no trucks ahead of me, and to the right. So I turned left. Luckily, it was a more industrial area. Then it took me all the way back around to the road I was on, and then I got back over there. So I made a wrong turn, got back on the right path, got back on the interstate, started slowing down. Now, one thing I've been trying to experiment with, most of the time, the Jake brake will you have to enable the Jake brake. Click, click. You have to. I usually go to the second stage when I'm going up and down hills when I set cruise control, because on the internationals you have to set the Jake brake. Not on the Freightliners, they will automatically come on, but to whatever degree you need. On the international, you need to set the amount of Jake you want. Well, came up over a hill. I look ahead, and I start seeing a bunch of cars stop. So I hit two levels of the Jake brake, and I'm gently putting on the brakes, and I'm slowing down, and then I'm like, I'm going to go to the third stop. And the cars in the other 2 lanes are stopped, and I'm driving between them, saying to myself, please don't have someone decide to whip out in front of me. Please don't have somebody almost did. And that was when I put on the brakes harder, and I was like, okay, it's not like I'm slamming them on or anything like that. But still, I was going 30-something miles an hour at that point. And I still am nervous about people jumping out in front of me because I'm like a wall driving down the road. And And so there was a UPS truck that was going about my same speed a few seconds in front of me. Then he puts on his brakes pretty fast. And so I put on my brakes. The third level Jake finally goes in. And as I'm slowing down, I'm like, all right, slow down. Don't push it too hard because I don't want to have a hard brake. I want to slow it down, and I'm going to stop and probably they want you to be 20 feet behind the truck in front of you. I said I will probably be, without slamming on the brake or without putting them on too hard, I'll stop and I'll be 10, which is still, technically it's fine, in a car. But in a truck, they want you to be a little farther away. Well, little did I know that the truck will stop itself. So it starts making this noise, real quickly and aggressively hitting the brake. And it puts on the brake really fast. That last, that extra 10 feet I was talking about, I was not going to hit the back of the truck. I can honestly tell you that. But I should have braked earlier. I will admit that. I should, because part of me was, I was putting the brake on, and I was waiting for the Jakes to kind of kick in to see what it would, how it would go, because I was going slightly downhill, and then I put on the brakes harder because I was like, I got to start, slowing down at a certain rate, and as soon as the Jakes come in, I ease off the brake just a little bit and let the Jakes. I should have stayed on and used the brakes as a supplement to the engine and slowed it down earlier, admittedly. I also expected the Jakes to go a little faster, but it's probably because I was going downhill. Again, wasn't going to hit the back because I was looking at it, gauging it, but at the same time, I wasn't happy with it. When it put that thing on there, a message pops up on the tablet, and it said, what was it? Warning, haptic, whatever the term is, warning, safety message, warning, something like that. And I was like, great, that's one of those safety warnings that I was warned about with my week of the training engineer. I was like, okay, that's fine. Again, I wasn't going to hit the truck. I now know that what I shouldn't have done is eased off on the brake. They weren't hot. It's not like I was sitting there going down a mountain, riding them, and I knew they were hot and they were starting to brake fade. It wasn't like that. I wanted to, for whatever reason, in my mind, I wanted to see what the third level of the Jakes would do going down that hill, a little bit. And so I did. And then I eased off on the brake, even though I should have just stayed on it constant, and just rode it down. So lesson learned. I know that's what I should have done. Again, wasn't unsafe. By the time I gauged it, I was like, okay, it's going to be probably just within that 20. It was probably, if I were to guess, I'd say it's probably 10 to 15 feet away from the car in front. Yes, too close for a stop. Things could happen. And I admit that. And that warning came up, and I just shook my head and I said, great. Anyway, went ahead and made the delivery. That's the first time that's happened. First time normally I slow down way in advance. I could imagine everybody behind me irritated because I stopped so far back. And I'm just sitting there, just gently putting the brake on, and I engage the engine brakes and just coast until I'm going slow, and I'll have a good 40, 50 feet in front of me. And then cars will whip out in front of me. I'm like, go ahead, buddy. Not bothering me. But anyway, so yeah, I'll do that. But anyway, dropped off at the first stop, which is a place near where I used to have a work project. And it was some back roads and some weird stuff. And there were a couple of roads back there that were no truck roads. And I missed my turn, made the next one. Luckily, that wasn't a no truck road, but people were still looking at me really weird, even though it didn't say no trucks. So I don't know if trucks don't normally go down there because they make their turns or what. Anyway, I dropped off that box, then went over and dropped off the other two. And as I was on my way to that one, I get a notification to pick up 3. I'm like, 3 from the same place. Awesome. I'll do that. So I dropped off the end of the load, and then I basically said, hey, I'm also picking up 3. So this was, by this point, It was Tuesday. It was Tuesday, and I picked those up because I drove out on... No, this is Wednesday because no, it was Tuesday. I'm confusing myself here. I got the job too late on Monday to pick up. So I had to pick it up first thing on Tuesday, ended up in Jackson overnight. This is Wednesday. That's it. It's Wednesday. That's accurate. And at this point, I knew it was late in the day. My wife's grandmother had passed a few days before that. So I wanted to go home just to say hello and to catch up with the family a little bit. And so since I was only like 25 minutes away from the Schneider Atlanta OC, I went ahead and parked there. Also, I found a strap that ended up having about an inch long gash in it, so I had to trade that strap in. So I said I'll go ahead and do that, and so I did. And there was one other thing I was doing while I was there. Can't remember what it was now, but I saw a couple of other instructors, and I went and greeted them, and one of them was like, "Hey, you look like an actual trucker now," because he was watching me do my post trip, and he saw me back in. I was like, "Don't give me too much credit, man," but it's nice to at least hear. I guess there was a level of proficiency he was claiming. It felt good to hear. Whether I don't feel like a real trucker just yet. I mean, I see these guys, and they seem so comfortable and familiar. One of the biggest issues that I'm having is when I pull into a truck stop. One thing that they do not teach you in CDL school, nor do they teach you in Schneider or something like that. They'll show you how to properly back into certain places. But if you were trying to pull out to do a straight back, pass it, turn, and then you have to turn back. But I'm almost always not centered in the lane when I do that. I'm almost always like centered on the line. I'm like, crap, I'm going to back up right on a line. And so, anyway, so that's almost every single time. I need to get that down to a science. I know how to position myself for backing in a 90-degree back. I know how to do that. But the pass a spot, turn, and then straight back, I need to learn to line that up better, because I'll end up getting off alignment and then say, okay, now I got to pull forward and then straighten up. Yeah, that's great. All right. So the job I picked up 3 boxes, and I had to pick up one the following day in Tennessee, just above Nashville. So I stayed overnight. I went to the Schneider OC, stayed overnight at my house, and then drove back there. And I left Thursday morning for Nashville, just above Nashville. Now, I try to always maximize my time driving, which means don't drive during rush hour traffic, because if you're going to sit there, you can sit there and just chew up your hours in rush hour. So I knew that if I did a comfortable drive in, not too early, and got to Schneider to get my truck, then it would probably put me in rush hour traffic leaving. So I think I set my alarm for about 4:30 a.m., gathered up the last of the stuff that I didn't pack up, also did my laundry. And the reason why is because I'm on my way to Washington State. I did my laundry. My wife gave me some more stuff, so I had to pull the truck around and offload my car into it, which cars are not allowed in the Schneider yard, but you can get them close, and then you can manhandle the stuff over and take it over to the truck and then park your car again. Anyway, so I got out of Atlanta just after 6 by the time I did a pre-trip and everything. And I got down the road, no traffic. I slowed down a little bit, but for the most part I was out of the city. And I got up to Chattanooga just after rush hour is bad. I came to a complete stop, and then it let me up again as I was going through Eagles Crossing, or Eagles Pass, Eagles Crossing, Eagles Landing. I think it's Eagles Crossing, Eagles Cross. It's an area that's like a steep grade, and it says trucks should go like 45 miles an hour, 6-degree grade or something like that. Now, here's something I've observed about the trucks. Now, I don't know if it's all trucks or if it's just this one. But when you're going down a hill, it detects the vehicle in front, this internationality. It detects the vehicle in front, but I'm wondering if because going downhill, the nose is down a little bit too much, and so it senses the ground in front of you and slows down. But what I will say is when I was going down, I was going slow. There was a truck in front of me going 45 miles an hour. I rode my Jakes and I was going 45, but the truck kept fighting me. I wasn't like tailgating him. I was a good distance away, but the truck kept putting on the brakes. I'm like, don't do that. So I'm stomping on the gas because it is slowing me down, and a speed limit 45 for trucks, it's slowing me down to the high 20s. And I'm like, go, go, go. I literally almost got to the point where I was about to flip it into neutral, but then I knew I'd lose my engine brakes, and I didn't want to do that. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna leave my engine, engine brakes, leave it engaged, because I knew that would be a mistake if I did. But it was almost that bad. It was almost to the point where I was like, I'm hitting the gas and it's not going. I shifted into manual and tried upshifting and downshifting. It was not shifting. It just wanted to sit there in whatever low gear it was and ride the Jakes all the way down. And I'm seeing the speed limit 45 truck pulling away because I'm going like 20 down to 27 miles an hour was the lowest I saw. And I'm like, I'm going to have trucks hit me from behind because I'm going too slow. Go. And I'm like yelling at the truck, go, 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 because it's just taking its sweet time. And so I ended up calling the OSR department and asking them, does the truck automatically, like if it detects a heavy grade, or does Schneider have the truck programmed to, if it detects a heavy grade, to automatically put on the Jakes and do certain things? And they said, I don't think so, but I wouldn't put it past them for safety's sake to do something like that. I'm like, well, it's almost the point. It was actually to the point where it was not safe, in my opinion, because it was putting the Jakes on too aggressively and was not responding to my controls anymore. Because I'm driving down that hill. And I'm seeing trucks whipping out of the lane that I'm in as I'm going, like trying to fight the truck and accelerate, going like 28, 29 miles an hour. And I'm seeing them come around the curve, seeing me, and then whip in the next lane over and flying past me going down this hill. And I'm saying to myself, this is unsafe. So as soon as I got to a point where I could stop, I called the OSR department and I said, are these trucks governed or something like that, that if it is certain areas of the country where you know that there's a heavy grade, are these trucks programmed to automatically ride the Jakes like an extreme amount or something like that? He said, I don't think they are, but Schneider's all about safety, so it would not surprise me if they were to do something safety-wise to the truck to make it work more safe, like that stop thing that I mentioned a couple minutes ago. But I tell you, it was actually unsafe because it was putting on too aggressively. So I asked him, why would it do this thing? He says, well, the sensor on the front that's detecting it might be down a little too much or sometimes up too much, but you might want to check it and make sure it's where it should be. Check the sensor, make sure it's clean, because what it probably is doing is detecting something, and it's slowing down. So the only thing I could think of is if we're going down a steep grade, if the truck is doing this pitching down, it would be pitching down. If it's doing this, maybe the sensor is detecting the ground in front. I don't know. What I do know is that it was kind of scary, kind of annoying, trying to fight the truck on the way down this hill. Either way, we got through it. I've noticed on a couple other hills, if they're steep like that, if there's any truck that it detects, even if it's way off there, it will put on the brakes. If there's a car or a truck in front of me and I have cruise control set and I'm like, they're pulling off, sometimes they pull out of my lane, and by the time they're completely out, the truck will just jam the brakes on, and so I will have to stomp on the gas to get it to stop doing the Jakes, because I'm like, the car was out of my lane, the truck was out of my lane, why are you doing this to me? But it's a safety feature. It's wanting to be safe, I guess. But I'm not like coming up on cars and then expecting them to whip out of the way, making room for me. I'm not doing that. I'm still a good distance in front. but I mean, technically not within the 7 inches that Schneider is saying, because what I see is I see the truck will go from the car or truck will go from the left lane over to the right lane. They start to slow down. I see the indicator come on, and I see them start to gradually go, and I'm like, okay. So at that point, I know I'm good. And at this point, I'm probably 5 or 6 seconds away from them, and then the thing puts on the brakes. I'm like, don't do that. Anyway, again, Schneider can do what they want. This is their truck. It's big time investment for them. I don't feel that this is unsafe because they're still a far distance away. And I mean, I will literally, and I don't understand this, I will see trucks tailgating other trucks or cars driving down the road. That makes me nervous. I won't do that. I want to. Schneider says have 7 seconds between you and the car truck in front of you. I usually have that. The times I don't is like the times that we were just talking about, like I'm coming up on someone who is slowing down actively for a turn. They're slowing down actively, making in their turn on their turning in signal, and I'm like, okay, as I'm slowly approaching them, they turn off, and I'm well within that distance. I know I am. Usually at that point, for me to get that comfortable with it, I'll glance in my left mirror to make sure that there's nobody there. If there is somebody there, sometimes I will go ahead and start to, if I start to approach a car like that, if it's starting to slow down too much, I'll go ahead and change lanes. Sometimes I'll just sit in the lane, and I might just I don't want to cancel cruise control. I've done that before, so that way I will coast. But the problem is if you have the cruise control set and the jakes are set, and you put your foot and tap the brake, the brakes will come on. And when the brakes come on, you slow down like crazy because of the jakes. So I backed off to stage 1 on the jakes before, tapped the brakes, and then have that happen. But it's not luckily happened a whole lot of times. But like I said, I don't feel it's unsafe when the car or truck in front of you is well off in the distance, and then they start to slow down, and you're approaching them. There's probably maybe 15 mile an hour difference at this point because they're turning off. But you get to the point where you're probably 6, maybe even 5 seconds away, and they're pulling off, and you're 5 or 6 seconds away when they finally pull off. You're more than clear. Schneider would always tell us to make sure you always have 7. Well, if I see someone go from the left lane to my lane, which I'm always on the right lane, almost always, unless there's a lot of merges happening, then I'll rock the next lane over. But Schneider says always make sure you maintain 7. But then if you stay in that right lane and cars are merging, you're going to be slowing down a lot unless you change lanes. So if I'm in the right lane and I see a car go from the left lane to my lane and keep that turning indicator on, I know they're going to be taking that exit right there. And and if they start slowing down early and I'm going towards them, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and get all the way up to 2, 3 seconds away. But anyway. All right, so I picked up the one pot. Now, this was a very good location. I forgot the town name now. It should be right here, actually, on this tablet. The town name, whoever the guy was at this location, was good. Goodlettsville, Tennessee, just north of Nashville. This guy was good. As soon as I pulled in, I had set the brakes. I went on the tablet and put my electronic log device to loading and unloading and load securement check and stuff like that. TIV, trip planning paperwork, tire check, because that's the routine that you get into. And as soon as I got out of the truck, I'm seeing this guy approaching me with the pod, and he goes and puts it right on the back of the truck. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, this is my 4th pod, by the way, because I picked up 3 at the other place in Atlanta. And I said, hold on a second. I look at it. He was right. And I'm like, how'd you know this was mine? And he says, you're my only Schneider today. I'm like, there you go. Clever guy. And as soon as he put it on there, and he said, you're my only Schneider for the day, he hands me the paperwork. He's already signed it. Got everything. I said, you need anything from me? Nope. Wow. Awesome. That was only a 7-foot pod. So threw a couple of straps on that. I was out of there in pretty quick time, which was nice. So I got out of there, and I got all the way to, I think it was Mount Vernon, Illinois, that first night. Stayed overnight. The next day I got up to Vermilion, I think it is, or Burbank, South Dakota. It's crazy to think that I was able to drive a semi up to South Dakota in 2 days, including a pickup and stuff like that, and still retain within the hours of service. I've driven across the country before, but when you're driving a car, you can just drive. Me and my wife tag teamed a road trip back from Salt Lake City like 10 years ago, something like that. And we went back and forth, and we drove 31 hours straight. We were just dozing off in the passenger side seat while the other one drives, and we drove straight back. We had our 2 daughters at the time. We had they were young at the time, but and they were troopers. They just, they were cool. And we only stopped to fuel up and to do bathroom breaks and food breaks, snack breaks, whatever. And we just hightailed it. We got back from Salt Lake City to Atlanta in about 30 hours. I was driving a little bit over the speed limit, I think, but driving basically nonstop, day and night. I don't remember the road that we took. It was probably 40 now that I think about it. But that was also around the 4th of July. It was a road trip that we took the 4th of July week. All right. So I drove up to South Dakota, stopped for the night. When I got up this morning at Vermilion, South Dakota, this is the first time I felt it cool in a while. That was nice. Got up, and it was like 52 degrees. Now, first of all, I knew that I was only going to be driving today and tomorrow, because after that I'm going to be out of hours. Like, looking at my hours of service, right now I literally have 4 hours and 33 minutes and 56 seconds left on a 70-hour clock. Now, when I got up this morning, I had my alarm set early, because I like driving early, because you get out, you get back in, it's early in the day, I don't have to fight for a parking spot or anything like that. I can get in there in the early afternoon around 1, 2, 3, and there's plenty of parking. And I don't have to do a precision back between 2 trucks while there's 2 other trucks trying to fight their way into, I'm trying to back in and they're coming right up next to me, snugging me or anything. I don't have to deal with all that. I just go into the spot whenever I'm ready for it. Pull forward and straighten myself out and have all the time in the world. Now, in Vermilion, there is a TA, and it's the nicest truck stop I've ever been to. They had Cinnabon, they had a Subway, they had a Pizza Hut, they had a Caribou Coffee. The whole place was just laid out great. It had an upstairs like cafe or additional seating, and very clean store, really nice theme, very nice bathroom. It was just great. So it was great being there for the night. Got up this morning, it's like 52 degrees. Now, one thing I will say that is really funny, driving with the bugs. Driving from Tennessee up to South Dakota in August. Bugs are just smacking my window like crazy. So every time I stop to refuel, I am cleaning off the windows like mad. And it was hilarious to me, because I was getting so many bugs hitting my window that other bugs were hitting the window on top of those, and they weren't splatting completely to liquid. And spreading out. They were like, they were hitting it, getting a little bit squishy landing, still dying, but then they were staying intact. So I'm seeing the bugs flap like this against my window. I'm like looking at them, and with my, and I would turn on my windshield wipers every now and then just to try to flush them a little bit, but sometimes I just did more to smear them. Anyway, so that was this morning. Refueled. I could not. That's one thing that really irritated me. Yesterday, I think I mentioned my board that I do. I will trip plan and say I want to make it to this certain place. Now, I know down towards Atlanta, down in the south, in certain areas where it's more densely packed, truck stops are more closer together. When you start to go to the Midwest or the West, they start to spread out a little bit. Especially up there when I was trip planning and seeing up in the Montana area, South Dakota, there were some big gaps between truck stops, and not just a Pilot and a Flying J. It was sometimes Loves weren't anywhere nearby. I would do a search for truck stops. I'd look at the Truck Map app. No truck stops. I would look, and if I wanted to stay overnight at like a rest area, unless they have a sign that says no camping or no truck parking, something like that, I could do that, I guess. But those aren't really safe. And there's no even Walmarts or Home Depots or Lowe's or anything like that to stay in. That's all farmland. And they'll probably cut down their own trees and make their own lumber. Anyway, so I hit the road, knowing full and well this morning that I had to hustle. Yesterday, I think I did 635 miles, something like that. And I know because I have my board. I mentioned this in another video, but at the beginning of the day, I always write down my mileage. And then I say what time that is. Now, the clock that I use is the one on the truck that always is set to Eastern time, which is my home time. That way I know what time it is when my family is there. I don't adjust this for the time zone I'm in. Otherwise, right now, I'm telling you, I'm in Mountain. So I don't adjust this. I only use that clock. That way it's always on home time. That way I always know where it is. Funny thing is my tablet's in Central because that's where my the home office is in. So anyway, you see that 20,535 miles this morning at 4:46 a.m. So it's like 3:46. Now the reason why is because when I stopped, I knew that I only had like 28 hours, 26 hours left, something like that. I knew that I was going to run out of hours after today. Knowing that, I know I didn't have to hit the road early. So when I set my alarm and it went off at 1 a.m., I was back there in the sleeper. It felt great because it was cool. It was like 52 degrees. The air conditioner was just hightailing it in the back of the truck. For the first time, I was just like, man, this feels great. And my alarm went off and I said, you know what? I don't have to get up right now. I can go back to sleep. So I reset my alarm from 1 to 3. And I went to sleep. And then I got up and I did my morning routine. I did about a half hour pre-trip. And that's why it was about 3:46 a.m. when I left, which when I got up at 3, got up and got moving within 15 minutes. And then half hour pre-trip or so, and I was hitting the road about 4:46. So that's why that is there. Now, I don't violate the whole, there might be people that violate the whole 150 or 3 hours, whichever comes first thing. But one of the things I'll do is I'll look at and write down the miles. Now, the first thing there, the reason why it was only like 50 miles is because that was a fuel stop. 60 miles, almost. That was a fuel stop. And then I left there. These are the times I leave. This is not, and so I don't mark the time that I arrive. I glance at it to make sure that I know that I arrived at that time within 3 hours, because I still keep an eye on this. While I drive, though, as soon as I set that time, I hit the road and I say, okay, so when I left there, it was 5:93, and that was at 5:59 a.m. The next stop was at 8:30. I left that one at 8:31, but I had driven 743 miles. Now, if you notice, that's 150 miles even. The reason why is because as I start to approach about the 125 mile mark, I will start looking for an exit. But one of the things that I also do when I do my trip planning is I look at where the rest areas are. And so I will pre-program in some things so that way it's in recent things. So that way on the tablet, they don't want you looking at the tablet and doing anything while you're driving, but I can pre-program in locations I want to go to and then set that and look at see how far it is. And I happen to see 2 rest areas, 150 miles, exactly 150 miles, and then another one at exactly 150 miles too. So you see 593 to 743 is exactly 150 miles, and then 743 to 893, another exact 150 miles. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. Actually, that was not a rest area because the rest area that I wanted to stop at was closed. I said, okay, the next exit, whatever that is, I'm going to pull off there. And it ended up being in South Dakota. That was a long one. It was longer than I expected. It went almost 20 miles past where I was expecting it to. Because I knew that was cutting it close between those two, but I knew where that rest area was because I could see it, and it looked like it was not going to close. A lot of these rest areas will close or just be a parking. That one didn't look like it was. And I knew that after a short drive there, I was going to want to try to maximize that. But that ended up being kind of a happy accident because I was looking for the exit. I'm like, come on, come on, come on, come on. Where's the exit? Where's the exit? And finally I saw one, took that exit, pulled off, and then it was like the next town over is like a mile away. So I pulled, I said, I'm going to blindly go into this town. It's a little small town in South Dakota. I'm going to presume that there's going to be a place that I can pull over. Sure as the world there was. So I pulled over there, did my load securement check and that kind of stuff, and then I hit the road again, knowing that I got lucky on that one. Didn't go over and violate that 150. And both of those times, I was looking at the odometer, and they had just gone over it and hit that 150 mark. So it means that when I was leaving, I was already in that mile. So if they just rolled over, it means that it was probably like 149 point something. Because both of the times that I pulled into the lots, I was looking at the mileage saying, please don't tell me I have a violation here, because I'll know I did. And, that's going to bother me. But both of those times I pull into the thing and stop within like, 50, 100 feet. And I was like, yes. So I know I'm like 149.9 or something like that or less. Anyway, then 893. And then at the end of the day, now when I did this stop, at that point I had to take a 30-minute in order to unlock the last 3 hours for my driving. And if you notice, I only went about 98 miles. I had gotten to an exit, and I knew that I was going to have to pull off on this exit, and at that point I was going to look at my hours, because when I pull off on this exit, I would have a choice. If my hours were there, I could go ahead and take either Highway 212 straight over to Hardin, Montana, or if I didn't have the full hours to do that, which would be about 4 hours, then I would go south down to Gillette, Wyoming, which is where I am now. The reason, and that was only 98 miles. So I ended up today only driving, how many total miles did I drive today? Only 450, that's it. Yesterday it was like 635. Wait a minute, that can't be right. No, that can't be right, because that was my ending mileage. So that's what it was. I didn't calculate the last run, so that's what that was. What is this? I should have written this down. 21,091 minus 535. So that's like 550, 560, 556, 5 something. Anyway, it's 500 something, so that's good. Not bad, it's 400. So it's like around 550. Now, the reason why, if you violate your hours of service, you're illegal. Your log is bad. I really wish that you had a grace period like once a week or something, that you could borrow an extra 30 minutes or something. To call it a safety thing, to make sure you're safe. I wish you could do that. Because when I stopped there, I was doing my trip planning. So I had my map open here, and I was looking at my map, this is currently open to Wyoming because that's where I am. I'm in Gillette, which I think is, where is Gillette? Gillette, the best a man can get. Oh, it always helps if you look at it the right direction up. It's getting kind of dark in here. It was lighter when I started this. It's right along 90. Where's 90? 90 is down through here, and then it cuts up. So Gillette should be around here. Anyway, it's down there someplace. I don't know. Whatever. So I really wanted to take Highway 212. But when I looked at things, I looked at Google, I looked at truck maps, I looked at the tablet. The tablet didn't give you estimates. The other two do, but it's based on car, car speeds. And both of them looked like that I could make it if I had about 3 hours and 31 minutes. On my clock, I had 3 hours and 41 minutes. And I knew that I would be going slower in a truck. And I knew that if I ran into any construction or any delays, then I would violate my hours of service. And so I said, I hate it, but I'm going to have to drive an hour and a half or whatever it is to Gillette, Wyoming. And so that's where I am tonight, or at least as of the time that this is airing, 98 plus days ago. So I had to sacrifice. I have an hour and 56 minutes and 4 seconds that I could have driven today, but the next truck stop from Gillette, Wyoming that I know of, that I was able to find, and I did look at every little town, I looked at every exit, looked around to see if I saw in an aerial view any truck parking anywhere. Didn't see any on any of the exits all the way up to Hardin, Wyoming. And up there, it was like, how many miles is that? It was something ridiculous, like 160? No, come on, don't vibrate at me. It was something like 160 miles. So I was like, there's no way in the world I'd be able to make that if I were to jump on the road and drive up there. Let me see where the next one is. So, yeah, so it would be right there. The next one is 186 miles away. I don't know if you can see that. It might be too bright. Let me lower the brightness a little bit. Maybe you can see that 186 miles away. Even if I was going 65 miles an hour, that's 3 hours. I'm not going to be able to make it there with an hour and 56 minutes and 4 seconds from where I am right now. No way in a truck. So at that point, I knew I was going to have to sacrifice my last 2 hours. But it's okay because I have to do a reset. Now, the deliveries, all 4 of these pods that I'm carrying, have to be there by Thursday. My goal is to reset. I can leave as early as 11 p.m. on Sunday night. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to set my alarm for about 1. At least that's what I'm thinking. Maybe even later. Might set it for 2. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. But anyway, the reason why I'm going to set it early is because I really want, and I've already trip planned this, I know where I'm going. I want to see if I can get toward the point of Montana, try to get up there. I know I'm in the Rockies at that point, but the weather's good, so hopefully I'll be able to maintain pretty decent speeds. But I really want to be able to do 600 and maybe 30 to 50 miles, 630 to 650 miles on Monday. As I start to approach, if I'm going ultra slow, I won't be able to go for. I can stop at the one. I can stop at plenty. There's plenty up there of truck stops. So I can stop at one that's about 490 miles away, one that's about 535 miles away, one that's about 580 miles away, one that's about 610 miles away, and one that's about 645 miles away. That's the one I want to make it to. Because if that's the case, then that means I only have 400 miles to drive to get into Washington, where I'm going to be doing my delivery on Tuesday. And if I can stop at that truck stop in time, then I will get up early. I'll make it the way through the last little bit of Montana, through Idaho, and across the state of Washington, and I should be able to get there by noon. Because I'll do my 10-hour turnaround, 10-hour, what's it called? 10-hour hours of service break, whatever. And I should be able to get there. That's my goal. Well, I'm going to try to get there by noon, if I can. So anyway, that's what's going on. I keep seeing, here's a fun note, and this is where I'll leave you. I smashed into so many bugs today that when I pulled into the parking lot here, I just backed in. And I have seen so many yellow jackets and bee-related flying creatures come up and eat the bugs off of my window from where they smacked against the window. I guess there are some mosquitoes and some other bugs that are tasty, but it's hilarious to me how they're doing that. They just come up there and they just, I watch them and they just sit there and eat them. I should take my phone and record them. Now it's dark. But hey, I got to do a reset here. So overnight here in Gillette, Wyoming, and the Flying JM does not have showers, nor do they even have water. So if I go inside, I'm like, yeah, where's your water? We don't have it. Luckily, there's a few stores around. I don't think I'll wander around. I'll probably edit these videos or get it ready to upload or something like that. See what happens. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching.